As a potential Green candidate for the Hellaby area, what are your concerns about fracking?
My concerns about fracking, certainly in my local area, are that I don't want the water to be contaminated and being unusable. I don't want the roads to be blocked even further by big machinery and trucks. We already have enough over the Hellaby Industrial Estate. And I certainly don't want our greenbelt land taken away to actually then begin fracking on, which I believe are the plans from the Rotherham Council at the moment.
We set up in 2013 when I read in our local newspaper that shale gas was coming to Rotherham. And being a science teacher, I know that shale rock can contain oil, but I didn't know about the gas. So I did some research and found that there's a lot of shale gas exploration and drilling and production called fracking in America. And it seemed to be quite devastating and dangerous. So I started to talk to people in my local town, Maltby, and got on our local Facebook page, found there was interest. But the biggest thing I found was that people didn't know what it was. So I thought we needed to find out more and start to raise awareness and start a discussion going. So I then booked a local hall and invited people, and 35 people turned up, which was astonishing. And we formed the group there and then. So yeah, it's 2 years ago now. But what we need to do is reduce the amount of fossil fuels that we use. That's coal, oil and gas. There are steps now to try to reduce our dependency on coal, but the government seems to want to replace it with gas. And although that can burn cleaner than coal, the scientists around the world are telling us we should leave 80% of fossil fuels in the ground. So we really need to not switch from coal to gas, but from coal to renewable energy. If we do start fracking in the UK, unlike traditional oil and gas wells where you drill down and the gas and oil comes from miles around, it doesn't happen with this because shale rock isn't porous, the gas can't travel, you have to shatter the rock, grab the gas and then move along. So it'll involve horizontal drilling, but they can only extend up to about 2 kilometres, we believe. So once you've exhausted that 2 kilometres, you then have to have another well pad, another well, so you could end up with hundreds of wells across the countryside. And we do know that looking at the estimates of shale gas underground, it could mean something between 20,000 and 92,000 wells across the UK. So that will be a visual problem. There'll be gas escaping, no doubt. Methane is a much more powerful greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide, which is another problem. If any of the chemicals that they use, or chemicals that come out with the gas, get into our drinking water, then we have a serious problem. And we're now seeing evidence in America of drinking water being contaminated. And then you also have to add into that house prices may well fall. DEFRA put out a report last year which said that house prices could drop by 10% or more. House insurances will rise. And it's happening in the north. So yeah, those are our main objections.
We've been involved in the East Riding Yorkshire, Frack Free East Yorkshire protests against Rutland Energy UK at Crawberry Hill just outside Beverley and West Newton out in Holderness near Sprockley. Since May of last year there's been strong community support for the protection camp that was set up in May last year. So there's a group of us, many of us pensioners, that have been going up most days, standing at the roadside, supporting the camp. The camp was cleared by the local authority in January of last year. So in the period from January down till about Easter, there was a group of pensioners that literally stood in the rain and snow every day, drawing attention and keeping an eye on Rathlin's operation. But because of their breaches at West Newton, Rathlin have never done a day's work on that site, and they've now admitted defeat. The site is now being cleared and returned to grass, and that is a small victory for the protection camp and pensioner power, as we call it. At West Newton they had to stop because of the breaches of environment and health and safety regulations, and the important point about that is that that too was about a protection camp, but also local retired people, local business people that have got a background in health and safety and were able to convince the Environment Agency and the health and safety to intervene. Now, the serious point here is that the inspection by the council was non-existent. The inspection by The Environment Agency, up until our protest, was very limited indeed. It was only because of our complaints. The strict regulation that we hear about doesn't work. It relies on local people to complain. This is not a safe industry. It is not properly regulated. It's not something that should be allowed to happen.
I'm not directly on the front line with the protectors. I am one of the backroom staff. I've predominantly defended the anti-fracking community for over 18 months, starting with Barton Moss, moving towards East Yorkshire, dealing with all of the court cases where people have been prosecuted for various offences, usually obstruct PC, obstruct highway, also Section 5 public order, which is essentially swearing within hearing or sight of a member of the public. So one of a defence team originally in Manchester with Robert Lazar Solicitors, and then secondly moving off into Howells at Rotherham, where for the last 12 months I've represented all of the protectors from East Yorkshire.
What rights do we have in this country for legal protest?
Well, essentially your rights are enshrined in the European Convention of Human Rights. The first right is that you have a right of peaceful protest under Article 10, and that is enshrined in UK law. There are various cases that permit Article 10 to be recognised within UK courts, but there is also Article 11 of the European Convention, which is essentially allowing an assembly to gather for peaceful protest.
Well, the real alternative, fracking, and the real alternative in terms of our energy policy right the way through is actually reducing energy demand. And that means investment in energy efficiency, investment in energy conservation, insulation measures, mass insulation programs to actually mean that people have to spend less money on heating and lighting their homes. That's the way that we're actually going to give ourselves more choices in terms of the energy supplies we've got going forward. And that would negate the need for fracked gas.
Why do you think it's so important to pursue alternatives?
Climate change is real, and it's something that needs addressing right now. So that's why we need to get that investment in energy efficiency, get investments in renewables going forward. And also the great thing about renewables is it's a very certain form of energy in terms of we know we know how much wind generally blows each year. We know generally that the sun is going to come each day. We know about these things. And of course you've got hydropower, wave power. There are lots of different varieties. And so having lots of different forms of renewable energy will give us much more certainty over our costs going forward. And of course it's generally not as reliant on having to purchase and extract fuel from the ground.